The internet is full of mysteries. Some of them fade quickly, others linger for years, etched into the minds of anyone who happens to stumble upon them. Tonight, we're going to dive into a few disturbing stories. Cases where photographs, sketches, or broadcasts were meant to help, but instead ended up haunting those who saw them. Our first story takes us back to the fall of 1997, in a quiet town outside of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. Residents were used to the hum of late-night programming on their local TV channel. But one night, just after the station signed off, viewers were shocked to see a single black-and-white image appear on their screens. The face of a young boy, maybe 12 or 13 years old, with eyes so wide it looked as if he was terrified in the exact moment the photo was taken. The picture remained there. No name, no phone number, no explanation, just static, and that boy's face, staring into living rooms until sunrise. Viewers assumed it was a glitch, or perhaps some poorly timed test broadcast. But when the same image returned 3 months later, again in the dead of night, rumors began to spread. Some claimed the boy was a local child who had gone missing years earlier, though no official record of such a disappearance could be found. Others believed it was some kind of cruel prank. The most unsettling part? The photo wasn't just a still image. If you looked long enough, you could swear the boy's expression shifted. His mouth would twitch, his pupils seemed to dilate, and one viewer even swore they saw a tear slide down his cheek. Whether this was an optical illusion caused by the low-quality broadcast or something else entirely, nobody knows. Local police dismissed the calls from panicked residents, insisting the station had no missing person campaign running at the time. And yet, buried in the archives of the local newspaper, a small article from 1984 revealed that a boy named Daniel Marlowe had vanished after school. Last seen walking along a country road just outside Harrisburg. His case was never solved. Was the image really him? Or was it nothing more than coincidence? To this day, nobody can explain where the photo came from or why it aired twice. The only certainty is that for those who saw it, the boy's eyes never left them. Our second story takes us far from Pennsylvania, to the quiet coastal town of Whitby in northern England. In 2003, a local fisherman stumbled across something strange while walking along the rocky beach at dawn. At first glance, it looked like a pile of waterlogged cardboard. But when he approached, he realized they were photographs. Dozens of them partially ruined by the sea. Each photo depicted the same scene, a dimly lit room with peeling wallpaper. In every single one, a woman sat in a wooden chair, hands folded neatly in her lap. Her face was always blurred, not from motion, but as though someone had deliberately scratched it out with a blade before throwing the photos away. The fisherman turned the photos over to the police, who at first dismissed them as nothing more than garbage. But when they examined them closer, something stood out. In one of the pictures, the edge of a calendar could be seen on the wall. The date? April 17th, 1974. That would mean the photographs had been sitting untouched for nearly 30 years before washing up on shore. Locals began whispering about a woman who had gone missing in the 1970s, a seamstress named Margaret Lee. She was last seen leaving her home to visit her sister, but never arrived. Authorities at the time assumed she had drowned near the cliffs. Her body was never found. When the photos were shown to Margaret's surviving relatives, one of them claimed that the wallpaper in the photos looked disturbingly similar to the pattern in Margaret's old house, which had been demolished decades earlier. And here's where it gets worse. On the back of one photograph, faint writing could be made out, as if someone had tried to erase it but failed completely. It read, "She wouldn't sit still, so I made her." No suspects were ever named. No arrests were ever made. To this day, the Whitby photographs remain locked in an evidence room, their origin as murky as the sea that carried them ashore. Our third story comes from rural Ohio in the late 1980s. For years, families in the small town of Chillicothe had reported strange incidents. The sound of knocking on their doors at exactly 3:13 a.m., only to find nobody outside. At first, it was dismissed as teenagers playing pranks. But over time, the knocking grew darker. One family reported finding muddy handprints smeared across their back door, handprints far too small to belong to an adult. Another claimed that when they looked out the window during the knocking, They saw the faint outline of a child standing at the edge of their yard, completely motionless, staring at the house. Police searched, but found nothing. Then, in 1989, a woman named Claire Benton disappeared from her home. There were no signs of forced entry, no broken locks, but investigators noted something unsettling. The glass door at the back of the house had 3 small, wet handprints pressed against it. Weeks later, her car was discovered abandoned at the edge of a cornfield. Inside the vehicle, officers found an old Polaroid photo face down on the passenger seat. When they turned it over, they saw the blurred image of Claire, sitting in a chair in what appeared to be a dark basement. Just like the Whitby photos, her face was scratched out. On the back of the picture, written in shaky black ink, were the words, "She finally opened the door." To this day, no trace of Claire has ever been found. Some locals believe the knocking children were nothing more than urban legend. Others, however, swear that at 3:13 a.m., if you listen closely enough, you can still hear the faint sound of knuckles rapping against glass. Continuing the Chillicothe story, after Claire's disappearance, the case went cold quickly. Police scoured the cornfields, interviewed neighbors, even drained a nearby creek. Nothing. But then other families in the town began reporting the same thing. The knocking at 3:13 a.m. A retired postal worker named Harold Greer told investigators that one night, unable to sleep, he sat by his living room window, waiting. At exactly 3:13, he heard the faint tapping on the back door. Instead of checking it, he stayed hidden and watched. Through the foggy glass, he saw the outline of 3 figures. Children. They stood perfectly still, their hands pressed flat against the door. Harold swore their faces were pale, featureless, almost like masks. Terrified, he grabbed his camera and snapped a photo. When the film was developed, the image made his blood run cold. There was the door, the smudges of hands. But instead of 3 children, the photo showed just one figure, tall with a long, distorted body, leaning unnaturally close to the glass. Harold left town within a week. Then, in 1992, another chilling discovery was made. Construction workers demolishing an abandoned farmhouse on the outskirts of Chillicothe uncovered a hidden basement room, sealed behind a false wall. Inside were 4 wooden chairs, each bolted to the floor. On the walls, dozens of Polaroid photos, pinned in crooked rows. Every photo showed a different person sitting in one of the chairs. Men, women, children. And in every single one, their faces were scratched out. Authorities never released the full contents of the room, but one officer who later quit the force claimed that Claire Benton was in at least 5 of the photos. After that, the townsfolk became convinced the knocking wasn't a prank. It was an invitation. Those who answered the door were never seen again. Even today, some longtime residents swear that the sound still comes in the quietest hours of the night. Always at 3:13, always at the back door. And if you're unlucky enough to hear it, you'd better remember what happened to Claire. The final chapter of the Chillicothe Knocks. By the early 2000s, most people in Chillicothe tried to forget. Families moved away, houses were abandoned, and the farmland reclaimed much of the outskirts. The official files on Claire Benton gathered dust in a county archive, marked unsolved. But legends don't die so easily. In 2007, a journalism student from Columbus named Anna Whitmore decided to make the Chillicothe Knocks the subject of her thesis. She interviewed dozens of townsfolk, many of whom reluctantly repeated the same detail. The sound at 3:13 a.m., the faint hands on the glass, the fear of answering. Anna became obsessed. She even rented a small cabin outside the town, determined to record the phenomenon herself. For 2 weeks, nothing happened. Then, on the 15th night, she left her camera rolling as she slept. At exactly 3:13 a.m., the tape caught something. First, 3 soft knocks, then a pause, then 3 more. The doorknob rattled faintly, though the door was locked. When Anna reviewed the footage in the morning, she froze. The camera had caught the window beside the door. For just a second, a pale face pressed against the glass. Not a child's, not an adult's, but something in between. Anna returned to Columbus the next day, shaken. She never published her thesis, never spoke publicly about the recording. But years later, after her sudden disappearance in 2011, her parents discovered a single Polaroid hidden in her desk drawer. It showed Anna, sitting in a wooden chair in a dim basement. Her face had been carefully scratched out. Written on the back in the same shaky handwriting that haunted the town for decades were just 5 words. She answered, like the rest. The photo was never traced. The knocking was never explained. And Claire Benton's name still rests in the county's list of the missing, her story forever tied to the legend of Chillicothe. If you ever find yourself there, locals will warn you the same thing. Never open the door after midnight, because once you do, it's already too late.